There is a moment most people recognize, but almost no one talks about. It happens late at night. The room is quiet. The lights are off. The world has slowed down, and yet your mind doesn't. Thoughts continue to move, nest, reply. Conversations repeat. Patterns connect. Questions stack on top of questions. Not loud, not dramatic, just constant. This isn't panic. It is an anxiety in the way people usually describe it. There's no racing heart. No obvious fear. It's something colder, a mind that never fully powers down. At first, it feels harmless. Sometimes it even feels productive. You tell yourself you're just thinking deeply, analyzing, preparing, staying ahead. But over time, something shifts. Rest no longer feels natural. Silence feels uncomfortable. Stillness feels wrong. You lie in bed, physically exhausted, but mentally alert, as if your brain is standing guard, refusing to stand down. And slowly, without realizing it, you stop expecting rest at all. This is the signal. Not burnout, not breakdown, not collapse. Something quieter. People describe it casually. My brain never shuts off. I'm always thinking. Even when I sleep, I can be alone forever, but never quiet inside. They say it as if it's a personality trait, as if it's neutral. Así fit, dues, ti, chente. But here's the part that matters. A system that never shuts down doesn't become stronger. It becomes worn. And most people don't notice the damage because it doesn't arrive as pain. It arrives as normalization. You stop remembering what mental silence feels like. You stop trusting it. You stop seeking it. And once that happens, your mind isn't who's active. It's permanently mobilized, like a city that never turns off its emergency lights, like a machine that never enters idle, like a war that no one officially declared, but that never ends. This isn't about intelligence. It's not about being sharp. It's not about being different or misunderstood. It is about what happens when the mind stays on alert for too long without knowing why, and what that state quietly turns into. Because the most dangerous part isn't that the mind won't stop thinking, it's that, eventually, it forgets how. When the mind refuses to shut off, most people assume it's a trait. They say things like, "That's just how I am. I've always been like this. My brain is just wired differently." But what's happening isn't personality. It's pattern. The human brain wasn't designed for constant awareness. It was designed for cycles. Attention, release, engagement, rest. But when uncertainty increases, social, financial, relational, existential, the brain adapts the only way it knows how. It stays alert. At some point, thinking stops being curiosity and becomes surveillance. You begin scanning instead of reflecting, monitoring instead of resting, anticipating instead of experiencing. The mind starts behaving like a security system, always on, always listening, always waiting for something to go wrong. And here's the mistake most people make. They confuse vigilance with control. The brain learns that silence equals danger, that stillness means vulnerability, that letting go means missing something important. So it fills the quiet with thought, replays conversations to fix them, imagines future scenarios to prepare, connects patterns to feel one step ahead, not because it wants to, but because it believes it has to. This is why overthinking feels strangely useful at first. It gives the illusion of safety. As long as the mind is active, nothing can surprise you. As long as you're thinking, nothing can catch you off guard. As long as you reanalyzing, you're protected. But that protection comes at a cost. A mind in constant alert mode never fully recovers. It never discharges tension. It never resets perspective. And slowly, the brain rewires around this state. Thought becomes default. Silence becomes foreign. Rest becomes suspicious. This is why many people say they feel more tired after resting. Why being alone feels good, but being still does not. Why even sleep doesn't feel like rest anymore. The system isn't broken, it's over-adapted. What started as a response to uncertainty becomes a permanent operating mode, and the longer it stays there, the harder it becomes to leave. Because the brain begins to believe something dangerous, that stopping means losing control, that quiet means weakness, that rest is a risk, and once that belief sets in, the mind doesn't need an external threat anymore. It creates its own. A mind that never shuts off doesn't collapse loudly. It erodes quietly. There is no breaking point, no dramatic moment, no clear signal that something is wrong. Instead, the damage spreads sideways. Decision-making becomes heavier. Focus becomes fragmented. Presence becomes thinner. You still function. You still work. You still think. But something essential is missing. Mental depth without recovery turns into mental noise. Pattern recognition turns into pattern obsession. Awareness turns into exhaustion disguised as clarity. This is why so many people mistake this state for identity. They say, "I'm just introspective. I'm naturally analytical. I'm wired to think deeply." But depth requires contrast. Without silence, thinking loses shape. Without rest, awareness loses accuracy. Without stillness, insight decays into repetition. What looks like intelligence from the inside often feels like distance from the outside. People around you seem shallow. Conversations feel repetitive. Social spaces feel draining, not because others are empty, but because your mind never exits analysis mode long enough to meet them where they are. And slowly, something else happens. The world begins to feel overwhelming. Not because it's loud, but because there's no internal quiet left to absorb it. Every input stacks. Every signal lingers. Every moment leaves residue. This is the part no one warns you about. A mind that never rests doesn't just lose peace. It loses orientation. It becomes harder to tell what matters, harder to prioritize, harder to feel grounded in time. Everything feels equally important, which means nothing truly is. And that's where the real danger lives. Not in thinking too much, but in losing the ability to stop, because a system without an off switch isn't powerful. It's unstable, and in a world that constantly rewards attention, stimulation, and vigilance, that instability isn't accidental. It's encouraged. You're praised for being on, rewarded for being responsive, validated for always thinking ahead. But no one measures the cost of a mind that never returns to zero. No one tracks what's lost when silence disappears. And by the time most people notice the absence, they don't know how to find it again. Before you leave, take a second to check if you're resubscribed. Most people think they are. They usually aren't.